We have the minutes before you, and if you've read them, are there any corrections to those minutes? Seeing that there are none, all in favor of approving the minutes? Oh, sorry, we need a motion. I'm just trying to rush us along here. Do you have a motion for the approval of the minutes?
I motion to approve.
And a second?
I second.
The motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And the minutes are approved. Okay, so now we have one public hearing, AM 18-001, to hold a public hearing and consider a request for a variance to section 114.98F to allow for a proposed commercial driveway to be 10 feet wide rather than the minimum of 20 feet, to allow 5-foot wide driveway approach flares rather than the minimum of 15 feet in the C2 Central Business District, addressed at 1344 West San Antonio Street. And Matthew, would you present that, please?
I certainly will. Board members, for sake of not being repetitious, I won't go through the entire case. I'll just talk about the relevant portion of the request, as we've already kind of gone through everything. So this request essentially is to look at the portion of the project that's between the edge of the street and the property line. The applicant has, the request speaks to a 10-foot wide drive rather than the minimum of 20, and 5-foot wide driveway approach flares rather than the minimum of 15 feet wide. So just a little bit of explanation on that. A minimum width of commercial drive is 20 feet. The only way to achieve that here without removing the house and the tree from the property would be to have the driveway, approximate 20-foot width would be there, and then flares would be something like that. So resulting in a total amount of pavement width entrance onto the street of 50 feet, because each flare is 15 feet, and then the 20-foot minimum width for a commercial drive or commercial entrance to be 20 feet at the property line. So the applicant is requesting, the original request, of course, was for a 10-foot drive width as it is today, with the approximately 5-foot flares that would be able to be constructed in recognition of the utility pole that's at that corner of where the apron would enter onto the street. The applicant did provide this updated proposal that would allow for wider commercial entrance and larger flares, but it still would not meet the minimum standards. In particular, for the flare that's on the right side or northeast side of the drive. So if this drive was able to be 20 feet wide, then a flare would not be practical because there would be a utility pole in the middle of it. So we certainly would not want to allow that. But the flare on the southwest side would likely be able to be constructed and would look closer to what I've drawn than what is provided on the proposed. So with all that in mind, I'll go through. There are 3 criteria that the board is to consider. Number 1, granting the variance will not be detrimental to the public safety, health, or welfare, and will not be injurious to other property or to the owners of the property. The intent of the adopted driveway standards is to provide safe ingress and egress from private property to the right-of-way. Commercial use of the property increases the likelihood of 2 vehicles attempting to pass one another while entering or exiting the property. Driveway entrance and drive aisle that do not meet the minimum standards could cause a safety concern with vehicles stopping on the road waiting for vehicles to exit. The southbound lane of West San Antonio Street is approximately 25 feet wide that would allow a vehicle to pass another that is waiting for a vehicle to exit the property. The location of the driveway entrance does not appear to hinder visual clearance entering or exiting the property. Parking will be located at the rear. As you well know, the proposed studio use will require no truck or trailer access, and the applicant has stated that the parking turnover will be minimal. The Access Management Board may place a condition, as you know, that was done with the previous case, restricting it to a specific use. Number two, because of particular physical surroundings, shape, and/or topographical conditions of the specific property involved, a particular hardship to the property owner would result as distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the strict letter of the regulations is carried out, or an alternate proposal will achieve the same result or intent as the standards and regulations prescribed in the ordinance. The applicant states that the location of the existing utility pole and tree limit the ability to meet commercial driveway standards. Staff recognizes the existence of the mature tree near the driveway entrance is a circumstance of the land that makes it difficult to meet the commercial driveway apron standards. The preservation of the mature protected tree species is supported by the city, and without removal of the tree, it is likely impossible to comply with the minimum requirements. However, staff also believes the existing driveway approach and flares can be widened onto the property. Number three, the variance or alternative proposal will not in any way vary the provisions of the zoning ordinance or other ordinance, which is true that they would not be affected by the variance. With that, the same notification responses were received for this case. So if there's any questions as staff, I'd be happy to answer those.
Any questions? All right, thank you, Matthew. Would it behoove us, well, I'm sorry, we need to go through our, sorry. Would the applicants please step forward again? State your name and address. This is a different record.
Hello, I am Robin Briggs. This is Matthew Briggs. 2544 Fayette Drive, New Braunfels, Texas, 78130.
Thank you.
Yes.
And would you like to add anything at this time?
Can we go back to the picture of the original drawing? So since we're keeping the way it is, because of that power pole is what poses the option. And because there's an apron, there's a whole driveway parking spot, if we look at this to the right of that, up to the north side.
You can touch on this. I
Oh,
think,
man, I'm
right?
so sorry.
Right.
Yeah, here, this one's bigger. All that's all concrete, right? So this is all flares out if that power pole wasn't there. Because the power pole's there, we talked about coming over here. When I talked to Holly, she said as long as it's 20 foot, we could go from that property line and make an apron over. You know, the problem would just be that there's going to be that grass area right here now. You know, but as far as making, if we needed to go over the 15 feet on that side, we could go there and do that as in the proposed. Man, can you switch it to the redone one? Yes, sir. That one right there. You know, we talked about kicking this one out further. Me and Matt did, right? Where he came out further on that one to make up for the other side, if that would help the situation.
And it would go around where the tree is.
You know, because you do have that space, and maybe that could even kind of help out the situation of a car kind of being out there moving.
Turning into that one across the street from you, I felt that the flare that they had there was adequate to be able to turn the wheels and get in okay. The difference is you're coming from the different side. The pole is on the other side, on that side of the street, where your pole is right as you turn in there. So I do see the pole being a little bit of a squick there, but as long as you've got some additional property there, or concrete there, the flare should allow enough. I don't know those things. Does staff know if that's an adequate turning radius for the?
I think what we what probably be appropriate for the board is to consider is if you believe there is to render an opinion or a decision whether there is a hardship and that the flare can be reduced, and then allow the city engineer to determine the most appropriate apron width.
I like that.
Yay.
Okay, that sounds great. Okay, so I think we got that. Is there anything else?
No?
So what does that mean? I'm sorry.
That means that we will
That's good.
discuss trying to approve it and give the lateral to the engineer to be able to determine the best approach rather than specify a 3-foot or a 5-foot exactly,
Okay.
but then let them determine what's the best, which would be in that area.
Is that coming back and
No, it just means we don't need to worry about it.
There
Okay,
you go.
okay.
Because we don't have that expert, that's beyond our pay grade.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And for the applicant, I
Right.
would clarify is if that's, the decision is made to give it to the city engineer, then it'd be part of your a permit for a driveway through the city that
Okay.
the engineering staff would review.
Okay.
Okay? All right, does anybody have any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, do y'all have any discussion? Do we understand what we're talking about with the engineer?
Yeah.
And how we can let that be a
That's
part
a
of their?
smart motion.
Okay,
Right.
yes, Matthew.
I just want to also make sure there's sort of two elements to the request, both the flares and the driveway width.
Right.
So the city engineer may be best able to provide guidance on the flares and the size of the flares,
But
but
we
we
have a
also need to
stagnant,
look
yeah.
at the driveway width requirement as well.
Okay.
Right.
And the city engineer may also be able to determine that as well, but I just want to make sure that
We have
we're
both covered.
Yeah.
Okay.
covering both, yes.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so a motion will need to include, well, if there's a motion, is there a motion?
I would motion that we leave the proposed driveway the 10-foot width, so he doesn't have to remove the shrubbery. And then the second part, as far as the flare, we allow the city engineer to make that decision, since we have really no idea what it looks like.
Does that work for our statement of a motion? Okay. We have a motion to address the 10-foot width of the driveway with flares to be determined by the city engineers. And do we have a
I
second?
second that motion.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
I
Aye.
Opposed? And that has passed also. So there we go. And this meeting of the Access Management Board of Adjustment is adjourned. Thank you.